Hello, my name is Peter Parfit. Welcome to New Brit Workshop and this workshop notes video number 9. Now I get about 30 emails or messages a day asking me various questions, suggesting various topics for videos and so on. And every now and again I spot something on the internet which I think, oh, that might be a good idea to mention when I do one of my workshop notes videos. So again, I'm bringing quite a few different things into this video, and one of them is an important idea, and that's where I'm going to start. Now the Festool MFT3 is a pretty good portable workbench. It's quite expensive and might not be in the early priority list of many woodworkers. But for me, what really makes this type of workbench so special is the pattern of 20mm holes which are at 96mm centres. And the rows and the columns of those holes are at 90 degrees. Now this makes it a really useful surface on which to not only use clamping elements like these, which Festool create, allows you all sorts of options for jig work and clamping and handling wood, but it also allows for third-party items like the Parf dogs which I've created and the associated smaller Parf dogs which allow you to then make perfect 90-degree cuts using a track saw. And I've taken it a little bit further and I've developed these things which you can make easily at home, and I call these Parf hats, and you may have seen me using these when I've been using my domino machine, and with a couple of those on the bench you can have a piece of wood flat in like that, push against here as much as you like with a domino or whatever it might be, and so on. And it's items like this and this, which is a similar concept to the Parf hats, where you just pop a Parf dog in there and another one in here, and then lo and behold, you've now got a surface against which you can do all sorts of things, and you can secure that from underneath using one of the threaded knobs, and then you've got a very secure surface on which you can do some clamping or other types of activity. Now I want to encourage other people to think up their own ideas for things that they can do, making use of the pattern of 20mm holes on a bench like the MFT3. Perhaps it's on a custom bench that you've made yourself, perhaps with the Parf Guide System, of course. But I'm trying to encourage people to come up with ideas for things like the Parf hat or whatever it might be. And one of the things I'm working on right now, to give you an example, this is a prototype of a vise that I'm creating, and the idea of this vise is that it can be attached to your workbench or your MFT3, and then you'll be able to do some planing or whatever else it might be. But I wanted it to be something simple which people could make themselves. Now the concept for this is very simple. It consists of a main frame which would be fixed to your bench top using a pair of the small Parf dogs from Lee Valley, which have got an 8mm thread running through them, and you'd feed one of these up from underneath and then use a threaded knob like this to secure it in place, and you'd use another one on the other side here, and it sits in slots like this so you can move it forward and backwards to suit your particular bench, so that you can adjust the position to suit your needs. Now this prototype design is based around a pair of screw threads that I had from an old Workmate, Black & Decker Workmate tool that really bit the dust, but I saved these threads, and so I can use two of these, one here and one here, as my main clamping mechanism on the vise. And the reason I'm using two is that I'm trying to overcome the problem of racking. When you make a vise, you want the two faces here and here to move together in parallel, even when you start to apply pressure when it's gripping a piece of wood. What you don't want is for it to come out of parallel either here or here, unless of course you're trying to match the shape of a particular piece of wood. So that is one of the big problems, and I thought by having two threads it might start to solve that. but I can tell you now that I have assembled this and it still has a racking problem. And it has a racking problem because it's made of wood. But you'll see in a minute that it's something which you could live with. Now the main frame and this front piece come together through this piece which has a little dovetail section there, and that fits into an appropriate shaped piece in here. And that then provides part of the sliding element of the vise. Now for simplicity I'm going to actually fix this to the bench top now, and I'm using one of these smaller Parf dogs from Lee Valley, and I'll use a second one, and I want this to be such that this face is at least forward, or if not flush with this front face of the MFT3. Now the next stage is to get this part of the mechanism in place, and then we're going to fix the threads. Now in order to get the threaded mechanism in, I'm going to put it in place, and it's secured initially with a screw through the centre there. I've got this element here which serves to help to stiffen up this rear portion of the vise here to help overcome any racking, but as you'll see later it doesn't actually stop the racking at all. And then the thread goes through, and one has to sort of encourage it through like so. And then there's a capping piece for the thread mechanism which goes on. So that's that done. Now you'll see at the end of these rods, I hope, that there are a pair of holes, one about there and one there, similar here. And the idea of those is that I've made a recess here and here, and that's going to allow the fitting of a washer and also a stop. Now the stop is just a simple little push-in element like so. That goes in there, and a similar one here. These are designed to fit into that recess, but they're not actually binding on the bottom half of the recess. And the reason for that is that the front plate here is going to be held now in place using a washer, which goes on like so. And the same here. And then a retention plate. And I've made up two of these retention plates. If I move this out a bit, you'll then see how they go. One here and one on this side here. So that's that. And now all I've got to do is put the knobs on. And this is very simple. I'm just using a little piece of brass doweling to hold these on. There's this fairly crude vise, and as you can see it sort of tightens up okay, and away you go. And you can put something in here and tighten it up, and perhaps even do a bit of work on it or whatever it might be. So in principle it works, however it's not right. It does have a racking issue in this way. You can control any racking that way by just adjusting one of these knobs more than the other. But for a prototype, for a very first go, it's not too bad. Now I'm quite happy that if you want to have the plans for this, you can have it. It might give you some food for thought for a vise that you might like to create yourself. The weaknesses of this design are very simple. First of all, you've got to have these threaded screws, and if you had to buy those it would be a bit of a nuisance. I just happen to be lucky enough to have these sitting around the workshop left over from many years ago. The wood I've used is beech, and I've done my very best to make this as strong as possible, but you know, I don't think it would really stand the test of time, but it's a good first go. Right, that's that. The next one is I had a question about the Festool Surfix system. So I'm sorry I don't have one that I can show you. And they'd used it and then put the pad and the applicator back into the tin which Festool supply. And the idea of the tin is that you put the applicator in there after you've used it and then go away for 24 hours and come back and then put the second coat on, and you don't need to clean the applicator out and you can use the same yellow pad again. And it's probably good to keep something in there for maybe up to a week. I've never experimented. And this particular person had used the system, put the applicator back into the tin, and after a couple of weeks it had dried out. Well, I'm afraid oil does dry out. Here's a piece of rag that I was using not all that long ago for some oil, and you can probably hear that has dried out. It's almost like stiff cardboard now. I've tried the idea of using tins myself, and here's a tin where I've had some of these pads that I use for applying oil. And yeah, this pad is just about pliable, but it's not usable. And so even in a tin, these aren't airtight, don't forget, it's going to dry out. Now, I had some correspondence from a chap called Martin. I won't give the rest of his name because he hasn't given me permission. There are plenty of Martins in the world, who said, how can one make an intermediate hole between a pair of holes on either your MFT3 or on a custom workbench? Well, I've got my workbench here. Now, it's actually quite easy if you're using the Parf Guide system to set up your holes in the first place, and you're at the stage where you've just drilled the 3mm holes. You can locate your 20mm guide block using the 3mm pins, like so, and like so. So that's now located there firmly. And supposing I want to put, and there would be a hole just here, and there's a hole under there. But supposing we want to go halfway here or here. Now, if you take the 3mm drill guide, this is the one that you use for trying to keep the 3mm holes upright, you'll notice that this thinner section here fits neatly into the 20mm guide block that comes with the kit. And now you can now drill a pilot hole there, which then allows you to go on to the next stage. And the next stage in this particular case would be to drill out your other holes in the normal way. And let's assume that that extra hole we put is just here. There's the extra 3mm hole just there. So we'd take our jig and now put the 20mm drill into this guide position here. We then position the jig using a pair of the smaller Parf dogs from Lee Valley, one there and one there. And we've got a 3mm hole under here, so we can then continue to drill that through. So there is another way you can do it if you've already drilled out the 20mm holes. I've put two of the Veritas small Parf dogs there. My 20mm guide goes here, and this is the place we want to put the hole. And you'll note that just here we've got a 3mm hole in this aluminium block. Now, I say aluminium because that means that if you were to drill through there now, you could successfully put a hole into here, but you would start to wear away that aluminium a little bit. And that 3mm hole there would become a little bit bigger than it should be. However, if you take a Parf stick, you lift this up a fraction, slide that under, then feel for the hole, there it is there. Now if you are now to clamp this Parf stick really tightly in place, perhaps here and somewhere along that end there, you could then remove this and then drill through there successfully. And in this case you would use the 3mm guide block to drill that hole, making sure that you don't disturb this ruler in any way. That will help to preserve the 3mm hole in this aluminium block. I just want to mention dust collection now. Now, if you use cyclones as an interceptor with any form of vacuum, and that vacuum machine has some sort of filter or whatever, or filter bag, you do need to still change those bags from time to time. Now, I've got two machines, both with cyclone interceptors, and I change the bag every year. But I empty the drop box where all the dust goes in probably 20, 30, 40 times a year, maybe even more. Now, that small cyclone I've got is the Oneida Dust Deputy, and that came through Tool Ovation here in the UK. That 4-inch cyclone I've got has seen better days, and in this cold weather it's been knocked a few times and it's developed cracks, and so it's time to think about a replacement. Now, for some time, a number of people, including me, have been suggesting to Oneida that they produce a 4-inch version of a cyclone, which would be really useful. They do a 5, they do a 6, and some giant ones, but a 4-inch would really suit the UK market and perhaps the US market and the rest of the world as well. And finally, I got a message from them saying yes, they are going to produce a 4-inch cyclone interceptor, and it's coming to market very, very soon. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I'm going to be able to show it to you in a video in the not too distant future. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.